Welcome to Conversations with the Planets with Lori Kaufman and Alicia Cielle Heiser, a podcast that roots the wisdom of the stars into our lived experiences here on Earth and weaves the power of diverse healing modalities together with astrology.
I'm Lori Kaufman, an astrologer, tarot reader, writer, and teacher. I co-lead the Asteroid Special Interest Research Group for NCGR, an astrology organization, and I offer all different sorts of readings, online and in person.
I'm Alicia Cielle Heiser, an astrologer, herbalist, and witch living in Oregon on Kalapuya land, and I offer astrology consultations and teachings aimed at helping you honor your most authentic self and trust your intuition. Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Today, Lori and I will be talking about the goddess Circe and her asteroid, and talking about her mythology and story and what it means if you have Circe prominent in your birth chart. And if this is your first time working with asteroids, or you're unfamiliar with how to determine whether Circe is prominent in your birth chart, we have an Asteroids 101 episode that is linked down below that goes over what the asteroids are, how to work with them, how to pull them in your chart, and why they matter. And then this episode will really be diving deep into Circe in particular. So, hey Lori, I know you've been working super closely with Circe right now. Do you want to share a bit about her mythology and her asteroid?
Yeah, so I guess before I tell her story, my process in writing the book, I got this download a couple weeks ago that I really needed to slow down and basically work on one deity a week, or not one a week, one a day, and let them really just like speak to me throughout the day and embody them. And in doing that, I've been getting so many pieces that I feel like I was kind of missing when I was trying to go through them really quickly. And so Circe was the deity that I edited yesterday. And a couple years ago, I sat with her a lot and had a ton of crazy stories. And, I had stories edited in so many different places about her and my connection with her. I have her about 2 or 3 degrees away from my Aquarius sun, in the eighth house, which means she's pretty close, but on the opposite side of my Mercury. And she's always been one that really resonated with me. So to dive into her story, just like a quick synopsis, her name actually means bird or hawk, likely. And she was the first witch. So she was a goddess of transformation and herbalism and all of those type of things. She was the daughter of Helios. And basically, she was just born with this immense power, and people were really afraid of her. And so, since people feared her, she was sent away and exiled to the island of, I'm actually not sure how to say the island. Aya.
Yeah, lots of
Yeah,
vowels.
it's just A's and E's sprinkled in. So she lived alone on the island and she practiced her craft. And basically, she was mastering the art of magic because she was living alone and she just had so much alone time to do this. So at one point, Odysseus and his crew ended up washing up on her island, and she had set pretty strong boundaries with them, but welcomed them in, with full hospitality. And the men had violated all of her boundaries, and so she got angry. She turned them all into pigs. And Odysseus was actually protected by an herb that was given to him by Hermes. And so he resisted the spell and was not able to be turned into a pig. And then after that, their dynamic shifted. They ended up falling in love, and they spent a little bit of time together until ultimately
Several years, actually,
yeah,
right? Or,
yeah, it was a
yeah,
while.
yeah.
Yeah, I forget
It's
how
part of
many
his
years, but
long odyssey home,
yeah,
but he's there
right.
for at least a winter. Because I might be confusing. Then he ends up with another goddess who keeps him for a very long time as
Yeah,
well.
Calypso I actually edited
Yes.
the other day and I'm still in the seas, guys. And yeah, Calypso I think he was with for 10 years.
Yeah, so I might be confusing him,
Um,
but he definitely was
yeah,
with Circe for a chunk of time before going home
yeah.
to Penelope.
It was a little while, but I think it was only like a year or two.
Yeah.
But I would have to look into that for sure. Um, but yeah, so as I did you have anything to add to the story or anything?
Um, well, and then she bears Odysseus's son as
Right.
well, who ends up
Yeah.
actually Athena comes to try to take her baby. And at this point Odysseus has left, and Athena comes and tries to take Circe's baby from her and kill him because there's a prophecy that he will be the one who ends up killing Odysseus, and Odysseus is like Athena's favorite. And so then Circe, while being, a single mother of an infant, also has to
Yeah.
cast these crazy protection spells all
Yeah.
over her island to keep her son safe from one of the most powerful goddesses. Um, and is able to protect her son into adulthood. And then
Mhm.
eventually, Penelope. Oh wait, no. Eventually, he grows, and she can't keep
Mhm.
him safe forever. So he wants to go and explore and meet his father. And so Circe actually goes down to the bottom of the sea and meets with this like ancient Titan god, who multiple gods have gone and tried to take this like poisonous stinger that he has. And I apologize, I cannot remember the name of this god, but he has this poisonous stinger that if you get stung with it, you have a wound that will just perpetually hurt and
Mhm.
you can never heal or get rid of. And whenever any god has gone to try to take it, they've had like significant hubris and they've wanted it for
Right.
their own power. But she's trying to get it to give to her son as protection so that he can travel and like be a 20-year-old without Athena destroying him.
Mhm.
And the god finally says to Athena or to Circe that you can have my stinger if you sting yourself with it. And
Right.
she consents to that and like is willing to make this incredible sacrifice for her son. And the god is so impacted by that he just ends up giving her his stinger. And so then she gets that, she like goes up out of the sea and gives it to her son for protection. And so then her son's able to travel to Ithaca and meet his father, meet his family. But at this point, Odysseus has gone crazy and gone mad. And so his own son ends up killing him when Odysseus tries to attack him, as the prophecy had foretold. And so then eventually Penelope and Odysseus's other son come back to the island. I believe Circe's son dies in the interaction. This is also
Yeah,
myth,
I think so
so it's
too.
like the
Yeah, there's
story
a
would
lot of
be
different
told
versions.
differently depending on where, like if you lived in Ithaca, the story might be told from one perspective, whereas if you lived closer to the island where Circe
Right.
was from, it might be a different version. Which is one reason, we could have a whole tangent on why myth is so beautiful, because there's
Mhm.
a million different stories, and it's not that one is right or wrong. But
Yeah.
the son that she does have with Odysseus ends up being the one who kills him, and
Yeah.
then Circe ends up connecting with Penelope and Odysseus's other son and giving them refuge for a while. And yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Um, yeah. So in sitting with her story, I guess some of the lessons that were really coming through, the biggest one that I actually kept getting when I was trying to like meditate on her was that solitude is actually really sacred and really great. Um, and just being alone does not necessarily have to mean loneliness. Um, and as I was writing that, I was just reflecting on like how that has shown up in my life. And I thought it was kind of funny because I like, not that I was ever exiled, but I've spent so much of my life alone. Like even as a kid, I just like retreated to my bedroom a lot and would just play by myself in my room. And then in college, I had like weird roommate situations that were like never around. So I never was friends with a roommate. And then I like have lived alone in either a studio or my one bedroom apartment for the past over 8 years now. And so I've just like never had to share my space and I've just ended up with like long chunks of time alone. And it's not that I'm not introverted. I've never really like
You are
sought
not.
out. Yeah, like I've never like felt like I needed to be alone, but it's just funny that it like has always kind of just circumstantially like ended up that way. I do prefer living alone. Um so I can kind of be in and out whenever. But I just thought that was really interesting. It's like finding the difference between being alone or like being lonely, because that's something I've definitely thought about in certain points in my life too.
Hmm. Absolutely. Um, yeah, so if you have Circe prominent in your chart, like the sacredness of isolation and alone time might be something that's
Yeah,
prominent. Another thing that really sticks out to me is her being the first witch, and
right,
particularly she is a goddess of transformation,
right,
transforming men into pigs, which is something that happens repeatedly because she's a woman alone on an island, and
right.
even goddesses can be assaulted and are assaulted quite often in Greek mythology. And so, to protect herself, when sailors would wash up on our shores, as Lori mentioned, she was very hospitable, right? In ancient Greece,
Mm-hmm.
they had these sacred laws of hospitality because it was a maritime
Right,
culture where people were traveling and away from home. And so you had these like cultural practices of hospitality you were supposed to follow. But then when people would disrespect that and disrespect her and try to harm her, she would turn them into pigs. And she had
right.
like a whole pigsty of these loser men,
Yeah,
which is amazing. So, I mean, there's a
yeah.
lot you can unpack
Seems
there
right.
of, protecting yourself or having experiences with people trying to
Yeah,
take advantage of you and having to, do extreme things to protect yourself. But
right.
she's an incredibly, incredibly protective energy, like the story I shared as
Mm-hmm.
well of her getting the stinger to protect her son, her ability to protect her son, her ability to protect herself. She can be a goddess you can invoke for protection and work with for protection as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she's a goddess of witchcraft, and she's also beyond transformation. She really has an affinity for herbs and for plants and for the magic of
Yeah,
the earth. And that is one reason why the other gods were so scared of her, is
right.
because she was able to pull on this power that was different than the powers that they had as divine beings. And she herself is an immortal divine being as well, but
Mm-hmm.
she's able to work with the plants, and like her island becomes this beautiful garden full of medicinal herbs.
Yeah,
And so, if you're an herbalist or you have an affinity for plants, and you have Circe prominent in your chart, that could be part of where that comes
yeah.
from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And kind of to filter into that too. That was another thing that I was really resonating with about her is that like because she had so much alone time, she was able to become really powerful and accomplish a lot. Um, and I was thinking about that and like I feel like that's a comment I get a lot from people is like, oh, you've accomplished so much, or like things like that. And I'm always like, well, yeah, because I like have the time to do it. Like, I'm always like, I end up with these long chunks of time alone. So I'm like, okay, well, what can I teach myself or what can I. And I spend all of that time trying to hone in on my hobbies or crafts or trying to like spend that time working with those things rather than allowing things to distract me from it. And I just thought that was kind of an interesting way to see that manifest in like a today person and like a modern person. Because that's definitely something that like I've seen in myself and I know I have a lot of clients who have Circe prominent too. And we've talked about that too, is just like when you're not distracted or when you're not like when you don't settle down when you're really young and get married young or have kids young, you might not have the time or energy to do things in your 20s, right? And so like I think there's just a difference of lifestyle. Like having that Cersei energy means that like yeah, the maybe negative or difficult side of it is that maybe you get stuck spending a lot of time alone, but if you channel it and use it to something positive, then you actually can have the ability to become the best at your craft or create something so beautiful from that extra time or from time that maybe would have been spent somewhere else. Um, which is definitely, I come from a family that got married at like 20 and had kids really young. And so I think about how much like I've done because I didn't follow suit with those things. Um, and so I think that can definitely be a way that she shows up as well.
Hey everyone, Lori and I are so excited to announce that we'll be teaching 2 workshops coming up all about working with the moon phases in your birth chart. And so we have a workshop that is live on Tuesday, September 9th at 4 p.m. Pacific time at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And that is about the moon phases and how to calculate the phase of the moon that you were born under and what the current phase of the moon is and what it means for your personality and your emotional and physical needs depending on what moon phase you were born under, and has lots of really fun herbal and magical and lifestyle suggestions for different ways to work with the changing moon phases in the sky each month. And then on Tuesday, September 23rd at 4 p.m. Pacific time at 7 p.m. Eastern time, we're teaching another workshop all about the progressed moon phases that will teach you how to calculate what your secondary progressed moon phase is and what that means and how that situates you within a 28-year cycle of growth and decline and increasing and decreasing within your life. And the progressed moon is one of the most impactful and potent tools that I use in my own personal birth chart and in client readings with people who I work with, and it's just an incredible technique to learn about. And so if you're interested in signing up for these workshops, they will be hosted live, and then we will also be recording them to send out afterwards for folks who are unable to attend live. And so they're $35 individually or $60 if you sign up for both. And you can reach out to Lori via email to sign up. Her email is lori.kaufman27@gmail.com. And that information is down in the show notes as well. We really hope some of you come to join us. Another thing that's coming through with me is the way that Circe is an outcast, and she's really like
Yes.
feared and misunderstood
Yes.
by the other gods and literally exiled to her
Right.
island. And, just to also give so much credit to Madeline Miller, who
Hmm.
has written a beautiful book titled Circe
Yeah.
that reimagines the entire saga of Circe's life and is just beautifully written and very steeped in Greek myth, but also like built on and expanded on, and I highly recommend it. But Circe, the way that the other gods view her and the way that she's been portrayed throughout history by like patriarchal male perspectives
Right.
as well is quite hateful, honestly, of her being a very
Yeah.
destructive witch, someone who like trapped Odysseus, although she is different than Calypso in that way. It does seem like
Hmm.
Odysseus and her really did have like a love and care for each other. The
Yes.
fact that she turns men into pigs, all these things. So
Yeah.
if you have a prominent Circe in your chart, having a feeling of being on the outside or being outcast or being misunderstood.
Yeah.
Circe had the voice of a human, and it kind of like squawked like a hawk as well. And so people thought her voice was just like so ugly
Right.
as well. And so like having a difficult relationship with your voice can be a part of that, either
Yeah.
metaphorically or literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then also Circe, in Madeline Miller's book, she really connects Circe to these other myths because I should have looked up everyone's names before we did this episode, but Circe's
Yeah.
sister was married to King Minos and was actually the
Right.
mother of the Minotaur. And in the Circe
Yes.
book, Circe goes to midwife the birth of the Minotaur. And so there's a
Hmm.
connection with that mythology.
Hmm.
And Jason and Medea famously find shelter on her island while they're
Yes.
fleeing in the Argonaut story as well. And one story that I found really beautiful that Madeline Miller wove in to her book was because Circe was a Titan as well. She was a daughter of
Hmm.
Helios, who was a Titan, and the Titans were, exiled by the Olympians when the Olympians overthrew them. And Circe remembers, and the Titans are the old gods, right? And Circe remembers meeting Prometheus and seeing Prometheus be put on trial for giving
Hmm.
fire to man, and him being chained up and imprisoned before his punishment is given to him, and her going, and he's her uncle, and she connects with him and
Hmm.
gives him just a teeny bit of compassion, um, as well. And I think that's a really beautiful story to imagine.
Yeah.
Is like one exile or one outcast connecting with another outcast as well.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And that is something I put in the book too, having a weird relationship with your voice, to go back to that, because that's
Mm-hmm.
something that like I've also had. Um, and so yeah, it's interesting how you can like find all of these little facets of these deities and how they show up, um and also just like there's such a lesson too in just being able to set boundaries and then stick to them. Just being able to say like, no, I told you not to do that, so you're a pig now. Like, just I think that's like, not allowing yourself to people please, or maybe there's like an aspect of if you have Circe, maybe you're not a people pleaser. Um, is that, yeah, that could also be a way that you could look at it. Like you don't have to ask permission. You don't need permission to be who you are. I think that's like a big piece of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and also the way Madeline Miller captures the eternity of being immortal,
Yeah.
right? And the way that her life just extends on, and she's been exiled on this island, and it's a very nice, luxurious island, but she's still exiled there, right?
Right.
And so, what can that experience feel like when something just drags on for longer than you'd like?
Yeah.
And also going back to the thoughts of like how she's been portrayed throughout history as well, and in a more misogynistic light. And what's coming through for me with that is the importance of telling your own story and the importance of who tells your story, right? Because then we have this female author, we have Madeline Miller come out and retell Circe's story in a different
Mhm.
way than it was being told by, whoever had access to write things down in ancient Greece or the
Right.
Middle Ages,
Yeah.
right? Who would
Well,
be like
and
generally wealthy men.
right, and back then, like women were so feared, especially women who had any kind of power that couldn't be controlled by men, and especially women who turned men into pigs or did
Yeah,
things like
who didn't
so.
let men disrespect them or take advantage of them,
Exactly.
right? Who
And
weren't
so,
submissive.
right, and so of course that was something that was going to be seen in that way, right? It was going to be seen as fear.
Yeah. And then the importance of like people reclaiming their own stories for themselves, and even the
Right.
gods having their stories be reclaimed and re-honored.
Exactly. Using your
And
voice.
yeah, finding your voice, exactly. Like, so that can come back. That could be something that might be prominent for you if you have Circe in your chart. And also,
Mhm.
like we say in pretty much all of our asteroid stories episodes, like myths are so multi-layered and multifaceted and complex. And
Mhm.
so if you have Circe prominent in your chart, some of these things might feel significant. There might be one piece we said that you're like, oh, wow, this really explains a
Yeah.
big part of my life. Whereas other parts, maybe you don't have a weird relationship with your voice, but you are an herbalist, or, there could be different pieces. So it's not that like you are
Yeah.
going to live out every single piece of Circe's
Right.
mythology, just that some pieces might feel prominent to you. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And
myth
certain
and
points of your
story.
life too.
Yes, especially because, that's the difference between if you're having Circe transiting your chart, you might have a temporary period of time where Circe's, conjunct your moon by transit, and you're like really into herbalism for this period of time, or you're living out the Circe mythology in some way. And then once Circe moves past your moon, you're done with that. Whereas if you have Circe in your natal chart, that is a natal promise where you have your entire life to live out the different pieces of the myth. And so some parts may have come out now or already, some parts may come out in 20 years.
Right.
Yeah. In general, with
Yeah.
astrology, that's the difference between transits and natal chart, is how much
Right.
time you have to live into that mythology or the
Right.
archetype.
Yeah, and there could also be something like, maybe you have a relationship like with Odysseus, and then you have like a period of exile afterwards, or like after he leaves, maybe there's something where you have to learn a lesson or take space to heal or time to heal. And grow, and like maybe there's like necessary separations, or like maybe there's so many different ways to kind of look at the way that she existed alone and in relationship. Maybe that's a
Yeah.
pattern for you. Maybe it's something that happens once. It can be so many different things. But ultimately, yeah, there's such a healing energy that came from her.
She is a profound healer. And yeah, another part of, her love story with Odysseus is later on she ends up sheltering Odysseus's wife and the son
Yeah, that's
of
true.
Odysseus and his wife. So that could be a part of your mythology as well, if,
Mm-hmm.
you're part of a love affair or some sort of relationship like that.
Mm-hmm.
And also to Laurie's point of how Circe lives, she'll be in a relationship or in a romance for a while and then be alone for a while. She was also a lover of Hermes for a period of time. And like, of
Yeah, that's
course,
true.
her and Odysseus can't be together forever because he's mortal. But like her and Hermes could have been, right? They're both gods.
Right.
And it did not end particularly well. So that is definitely a part of
Sure.
Circe's story is,
Yeah.
she'll have these lovers for periods of time and then she'll be alone
Mhm.
after that as well. Which does not mean that you are doomed to have that be your love life if you have Circe prominent in your chart.
Yeah.
But for some
But there
people,
could be a phase like that
yeah,
where,
for some people, or maybe you've been through that in the past. And for some people
yeah,
that might be super resonant, but there can be other factors in your chart,
yeah,
especially if Circe's not aspecting your seventh house or your seventh house ruler, it might be less prominent in how it's impacting
yeah,
your romantic life. But yeah.
yeah. I also feel like the negative manifestation could be like isolation, or like overly isolating yourself, or like literally getting exiled.
Yeah, being
Um,
isolated by others, being misunderstood by others. Like if you're not a people
right.
pleaser, people might not. My Venus in Scorpio will say people might not be too pleased by you sometimes if you're not
Right.
trying to please them.
Exactly. Yeah. Um, And yeah, and I think like too, like I've never really been too much of a people pleaser. But I've always found really nice ways of being like, actually, I don't want to do that. So,
Yeah.
so I think there's always like another way of shifting. Um, but yeah, that could definitely be a theme. There could also be like misusing power, or like turning men into pigs who didn't deserve it, maybe.
Or having
Um,
relationships with others who misuse their power, because the way
right.
that Madeline
Yeah.
Miller depicts Circe being the son of or the daughter of Helios, right?
Right.
Helios is like
Yeah.
this all-encompassing,
Mm-hmm.
bright sun god who is the center of everything, and
Yeah.
he seems like kind of an asshole as far as a
Right.
father, right? So
Yeah.
it's like you might have that sort of relationship too, where there's people in your life who outshine you or use
Yes.
their power aggressively over you.
Yeah. 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 And there could be pretty big like abandonment wounds, that kind of stuff.
Um, I have
Yeah.
some pictures, some images of Circe, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
share my screen so we
I
can
also
kind
have, yeah, I have a personal story too that I can share from last summer. I actually posted it on Substack this morning and made a TikTok about it. So I've been sharing my content.
I love that.
Um, but yeah, there she is.
Yeah, there she is in a
So
vase. And then let me
I
just
love that.
I want this one to be in the background while you share your story because because I really like this
Yes.
one.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so about a year and some change ago, I was at this festival and it was just everyone there were vendors. Like nobody came who wasn't a vendor. So all of the vendors ended up just like hanging out the entire weekend, which ended up, none of us made any money, but it ended up being really fun. And I ended up meeting this girl there who ended up becoming such a good friend of mine. And we had met once before because she came up to me and I was collecting my business cards off a table and she thought I was like taking business cards, not just my own. And so she's like, "Oh, here, take mine too." And it said she worked with Myth really big on it. And I looked up and I was like, "Oh, cool, hi." And then she's like, "You were taking your own, weren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I'll take yours." And so then we like talked back and forth about meeting up and hanging out, but never did. But then flash forward a year, I ran into a friend and she was like, "Oh, like you would love Erica. Have you met Erica?" And she like points me over. And we were like, "Oh, yeah, we met once." And so we ended up becoming really good friends and like we talk about mythology a lot. We've worked together a decent amount. We've done a lot of this overlap. And the three of us kind of ended up starting a accidental channeling group throughout the weekend. And towards the very end of the day, Saturday, we decided to channel Circe. And I was getting really big messages from Circe at the time, but I didn't really know why. And so we call her in, and right away the energy changes and shifts, and we started talking to her a little bit, and then out of nowhere, it starts storming. Like the skies were perfectly blue, everything was like totally fine. And it was like a perfect, like sunny 75 day. Like there was no issue. But then all of a sudden, like strong winds and downpour. And it was like almost like zero to tornado in like 5 seconds. Like it just was the craziest storm I've ever been a part of. And I panicked. I just like picked up all my stuff, threw it in my bag, ran to my car, and drove away. And about 10 minutes into my drive, it stopped completely. I drove out of it and it was completely clear for the rest of my drive home. And I got home and I almost wondered, like, oh, I wonder if I should go back. Like, why did I leave? Why did I feel so scared? Why did I run away? And I spent the entire night overthinking it. I was like, oh my God, Circe didn't want me channeling her. Like, she didn't like that. Like, I just was like overthinking it so much. And the next morning, I went back and the two women ran right up to me and they were like, oh my God, that was so cool. And I was like, cool? Like, we angered Circe. Like, what do you mean that was cool? And they were like, no, she was showing you her power. Like, she was showing you your power. And I was like, oh, I didn't think of it like that. And they were like, yeah, she brought on a storm to show you how powerful she is. Like, she did that for you, not to you. And we all like sat around talking about that. And I was like, oh, maybe she did. Like, there was this huge, intense energy of like, yeah, don't mess with me. But it really didn't feel scary. I took it as fear, but none of them did. And they all stuck around. And I just was so blown away by that. And later I went home and I started reading some more of her stories and researching her some more. And I found that she actually, in some traditions and some stories, controlled the weather and she could
Mm.
control storms. And she would send storms when unwanted visitors were coming to her island. She would send a storm to send them away, um, in certain stories. And I just thought that was so funny that, like, that was actually a thing about her. And ever since then I kind of look back on that like, wow, that was that was a really weird moment. But it was so powerful to see just like how much everything just shifted so quickly.
Yeah, that is incredible. Sometimes the gods
Yeah.
just can be so loud and so present.
I know.
And also, there's so many different ways to interpret omens as well.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But it was
Yeah.
very cool. And I think back on that all the time. Like, that was a cool moment. That was a crazy, crazy
Yeah.
storm.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Circe is
Yeah,
powerful, which is also,
so
if
powerful.
you're going to work with her, if you're going to invoke her, be respectful, be careful,
Yeah.
make sure you have the right intentions because
Yeah. Because
she is
otherwise
she
she'll
is
do stuff
powerful.
like that.
Yeah, she might turn you into a pig if you're not careful.
It's true.
Um, well, and another thing I'm remembering as I look at this picture is she, like she's a goddess of transformation who is able to turn people into pigs, but she also has an incredible affinity for animals and is known for
Hmm.
having like lions around her, tigers around her.
Yes.
And so that can be another part, maybe you work in a vet office or you're able to speak with
Mhm.
wild animals or you have a particular affinity for your
Yeah.
pets or something if you have a prominent
Yeah.
Circe.
I've seen her associated with the strength card in tarot as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, actually, when I was reading the Circe book, I was pulling the strength card a lot.
Mm, that's interesting.
Yeah. And then here's just another great picture of Circe.
She's so cool.
She is. Yeah. Well, do you have anything else to share, Lori?
No, I feel like that was most of my Circe information.
Perfect. Yeah. Um, yeah, so if you have Circe prominent in your chart, please share with us how that shows up for you, or if any of this was resonant, or if you have any personal anecdotes or life stories of how Circe has shown up for you. We love
Yeah,
hearing from you guys. And
absolutely.
we had a little clip in the middle of this announcing our moon phases workshops, but we do have 2 workshops coming up that we're really excited about that are
Yeah.
both live but will be recorded for
Hmm.
people to enjoy afterwards as well. So if you sign up for the live version, you'll still get the recording. If you're
Hmm.
unable to attend the live version, we'll just send you the recording. And so you can sign up for one or both, but really working with the moon and the moon phases and the progressed moon is, it's like people are always asking about like, what's your sun, moon, rising? And we talk about the moon in passing so much, but actually really digging into the power
Yes.
that our moon has in our chart and what it says about our physical and emotional needs and our personality and
Yeah.
life cycles as we go through them. Being able to connect with the moon throughout the month in the sky, working with the
Yeah.
progressed moon is incredible for knowing kind of where you are in these 28-year cycles. So we really highly recommend you guys engage with those, especially while
Yeah.
Jupiter is in Cancer. It's just a really great time to be working with the
Absolutely.
moon. So we hope to see some of you guys in those workshops.
Yeah. I also would love to add too, like unrelated to the workshops, you should totally come to the workshops. But if there's anything you want to hear us talk more about, or any techniques or anything, but also especially any other deities, um, please let us know because I love doing these asteroid episodes, and I've been writing a lot on my Substack and trying to share as many stories as possible. So if you have any stories and you feel like reaching out just to talk to us, or if you want them shared or anything, yeah, please reach
Yeah,
out.
please, please, please do. Either for just podcast episodes you'd love to hear us do, and then we
Yeah.
also want to be doing more of these workshops in the future as well. So if there's
Yes.
something that you would enjoy learning about in a
Learning about.
workshop format as well, I think it'll be really fun to start doing more workshops and having it be a bit more personal, having Q&A periods, having
Yes.
a bit more time to dig into things a little more deeply than we can with the podcast episodes. So we're really excited
Yes.
about adding this on top of the episodes that we'll keep doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you all soon. Thanks. Bye. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any personal stories to share or thoughts and reflections about what we discussed in this episode, please comment down below or reach out to us on Instagram. And please come follow us on Instagram at ConversationsWPlanets, where we share forecasts and updates about the astrological movements happening in the sky, as well as updates about our episodes. The link to our Instagram is in the show notes down below.